Hey there everybody, Seja here, and I want to welcome you to the first part here in a 4-part series that I'm going to be running for you for the next few weeks, sharing with you alchemy and herbalism. You know, this is the tradition of alchemy is a really dear tradition to my heart. I'm really excited to be sharing some of these teachings with you because for me, the alchemical tradition was really the missing link to the puzzle on my quest for, you know, a really holistic system of herbal medicine. And one of the primary ways that it does that, and I think one of the main ways that it really sparked something really deep within me, was the way in which alchemy really brings together science and spirituality. And that's really what I want to share with you in this episode in this 4-part series. Because I think in the modern paradigm of herbal medicine, I really feel like this integration and synergy between science and spirituality is critically important. These are oftentimes seen as kind of diametrically opposite ways of viewing the world, right? One very materialistic and mechanistic and reductionistic, and the other more circular and more based in faith and belief and things that, you know, to most people haven't been scientifically proven, even though we're seeing, you know, with biology of belief and everything done with quantum physics and things like that, that there is actually scientific explanations for, you know, more of the invisible aspects of life. But, you know, alchemy is really this ancient system that unites these two worlds. And, you know, obviously the root of our word chemistry comes from alchemy. And one of the interesting things that we see is over history that, you know, alchemy really was the original science, but it was seen as a sacred science, that there was an observation and exploration of the natural world and looking at chemical virtues, but also seeing that there is a deep meaning there as well, that there's purpose, that there's sentience, that there's intelligence, that anywhere life is, there is a spirit, but there is also a body, a material side of it. And throughout history, as, you know, alchemy gradually kind of became desacralized, we see alchemy turning into chemistry, and you know, we see that in a lot of different areas of life and knowledge and history and traditions, that gradually kind of the spirit was removed from the system and it became more mechanistic and reductionistic. So, you know, alchemy turns to chemistry, and astrology turns into astronomy, and even herbal medicine turns into modern pharmaceutical medicine. And what I think is so critically important about really what alchemy has to offer herbalism is this balance of being able to look at a plant and understand it on a pharmacological, biochemical level, but also to understand the spiritual side of that plant as well, to see it as this living, sentient, conscious being that has the capacity to heal us on that spiritual level as well as the physiological level. And I really believe that that is the kind of healing that people are looking for these days. I think that's the level of healing that's really needed out there, and that a lot of people are looking for. I can't tell you how many of my students and just fellow herbalists that I talk to that say more and more people are coming to them asking for help on levels beyond the body, looking for help in their psychology, looking for emotional support, looking for spiritual support as well. And alchemy provides us with an incredibly sophisticated and refined system for helping people on that level. So I'm super excited to be kind of opening up this doorway for you over the next 3 or 4 weeks here and sharing what I see as being some of kind of the core fundamental philosophical aspects as well as practical applications of alchemy that you can put to use in your work with herbal medicine. And so, thinking about this dynamic of bringing together science and spirituality, right? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does an integrated model of herbal medicine look like that can honor the physical and the spiritual side of both people and of plants, as well as life and nature as a whole? And, I think herbal medicine has been practiced in that way for a very long time. But as I said, as science has really become this very strong, dominant force in the world, herbalism has suffered because of that as well, right? That some people don't think that plants really have sentience or intelligence or consciousness, or that they can heal us on a psychological and emotional or even spiritual level. And that's okay, but at the same time, it also kind of denies what thousands of years of culture and tradition and ways of practicing medicine have really recognized for a very long time. And I think alchemy is a really unique piece of that puzzle because science was born out of alchemy. And so it forms this, I think, really excellent bridge between the two. But if we think about, people and we think about plants, as kind of the spirit was removed from our approach to the world, it really affected how we approach practicing herbal medicine. So for example, when we're looking at a plant, in that mechanistic understanding, we really only understand a plant based on its chemistry, right? We see that there's, biochemically active constituents in the plant that bind to certain receptors in our bodies, and that is what is responsible for the healing attributes of plants. And that's totally true for sure, but it oftentimes negates traditional models of understanding, such as looking at the energetics of a plant in terms of how it affects the ecology of the human organism, in terms of how it influences temperature and moisture and tone and different aspects of the body like that. And at the same time, you have herbalists kind of on the other end of that spectrum that maybe focus more on, I guess we might refer to as psycho-spiritual approaches to working with plants, right? Maybe working with plant spirit medicine, or working with flower essences, or more subtle forms of healing that aren't so much focused on the body, but more focused on the mind and the emotions. And what really kind of challenged me for a long time in my approach and the way I kind of thought about and working with people is there was always this split, right? There was always this separation. Well, we're going to look at the body through this lens, through anatomy and physiology and biochemistry, and then we're going to look at the emotional side and the psychological side in a totally different way, and we're going to look at the spiritual side in a totally different way. And it was like all over the place, right? There wasn't a very integrative approach that really saw the relationship between the body and the mind and the heart and the soul. And this is one of the core teachings of alchemy, right? Is essentially its unity, right? I'm going to talk about that a lot in the next part of this series, talking about the teachings of the microcosm and the macrocosm. But really in alchemy, they see that the human organism is a whole being. There's one you, it's one, right? The body isn't separate from the mind or from the emotions or from the soul, that they're all inextricably woven together into a wholeness, right? And I think that's one of the key things that we have to understand about working with people, is that what's going on in the body is a direct reflection or influence upon the mind and the heart and the soul. And the more that we're able to see those dotted lines, to see those core patterns, to really see the essence of a person, the more effective our work with herbal medicine will be, especially if you're trying to work in a way that is equally addressing the body, the psyche, and the soul. So I think this is one of the big ways that alchemy supports us in working with people, is having that very holistic lens through which we're able to see a person and able to start to understand the core patterns that we carry, like the root causes of the struggles that we face as human beings, and how healing isn't just the absence of disease, and health isn't just the absence of disease, but really it is a whole state of being, of wholeness unto ourselves, along with wholeness in our connection to nature and to the wholeness of life. And therein lies the seed for our spiritual development. That's a core attribute of this alchemical lineage that really has had a very profound impact on my personal approach to, really life, but herbalism for sure, is that healing and evolution are kind of two sides of the same leaf. That as we focus on healing ourselves, whether that's again in our body or other levels, we evolve, we change, we grow, we become renewed and rejuvenated, and we emerged on the other side of that healing in a greater level of wholeness and harmony within ourselves and within nature. And so this dynamic of healing and our spiritual development, or our evolutionary process and pathway of the soul, is something I'm definitely going to get into in a lot more detail later on in this series. But this is just one way that I really see alchemy supporting our understanding of connection between the science, or the body, and the spirit or the soul of a person. And really the same applies to plants. So when we think about plants, in more of that, when the science and the spirit are separate, again, it's like we look at a plant and we come to understand its physical healing attributes, maybe through its chemicals, or maybe through its energetics and through its actions and organ system affinities, and even what types of diseases or symptoms it tends to heal. But then one thing I noticed when I was first studying plants, I was like, well, I want to learn about the psycho-spiritual properties of a plant. But none of the herbals I looked at ever had any information on it, right? It was always like really small paragraph descriptions or big lists of kind of what they're good for. And if I wanted information about how those plants would work on kind of these more subtle levels of being, I'd have to go to, like flower essence repertories, or, go to the plant itself and kind of decipher and determine it from within the heart. And there was always this split, right? This separation. And I think that's kind of the main point I'm trying to make, is that there is this separation in the way we view the world and people and plants, and alchemy has this ability to unite those together into a significantly more holistic worldview. And so with a plant, we're able to, what alchemy does, this alchemical understanding does, is allows you to really see the relation, just like in people, see that relationship between what that plant is doing within the body, like when you take that plant into your body, where does it flow? Where does it go to? What organ systems does it reach into and touch? And when it goes into that organ system, how is it shifting the ecosystem of that organ? And how is it healing us on that physical level? The whole way that a plant is doing it in the body, it's the same exact pattern that it's doing within our psychological and emotional being. And that's the same pattern that it's doing on the spiritual side as well. So again, just like in a person, there is an essence within the plant. There is a core singularity within the center of a plant. And that is the medicine of the plant, the core medicine of the plant. And that essence within the plant is a pattern. And that medicinal essential pattern within the plant is reflecting on what it does in our bodies, what it does in our minds, what it does in our hearts, and what it does within the soul. That's one thing that reflects on multiple scales. And so what this does is, again, it's that dotted line that allows you to really connect and understand a plant on a significantly deeper level than just, oh, this herb is good for anxiety, or this herb is good for a cough, or this herb, helps you overcome grief, or this herb helps you be more open-hearted, or right, things like that. That I'm not putting that down. That's all very valuable information, but it all is kind of on the surface. And what alchemy does is allows you to see what's beneath the surface, what's behind these different layers within a plant, so that you can understand it holistically. And it is the holistic understanding of a plant and the holistic understanding of a person that allows you to cultivate a holistic practice of herbal medicine. And if you're here with me, I'm assuming that's what you want, right? That you don't want to be just to use this for that kind of herbalist, right? That you want the medicine that you carry and the way that you work with people to bring about a deeper level of transformational healing. And that ultimately is what alchemy is all about, right? Is transformation. It's oftentimes one of the ways that people talk about alchemy, right? It's kind of this almost a simile for, or not, maybe not simile, but what's the word? Like a replacement word for transformation, right? And that's where ultimately we see the word alchemy used like very much outside of the context of the actual traditional lineage and body of knowledge that it is. And a big part of my purpose on this earth is doing my best to preserve these teachings of alchemy and continue to grow and expand them and make them applicable and practical, and so that people can heal, because there is an incredible level of power within this tradition and the teachings that it holds to bring about incredibly powerful levels of healing for people that I believe we all really need, especially during these times on this Mother Earth where we're all getting challenged individually and collectively and globally, and all of life, I feel like, is shifting right now. And the more that we can heal ourselves and support and help to heal others, I believe that that is what is going to turn the tides in a positive direction. So these are just some of the ways, kind of at a high level, some of the ways that I see alchemy being incredibly beneficial for us as herbalists, in the way that it changes our perception. It changes the way we see things, because we no longer see the plant and we no longer see the person in isolation. They're not an island. We see them in relationship to the wholeness of life itself, to the pattern of nature, of creation, of the cosmos. And that's why, to me, it is really, in the truest sense of the word, the most holistic system of medicine, because we see the whole plant and the whole person in relationship to the wholeness of life. And that ultimately is what I'm going to be sharing with you in the second installation in this special blog post series here, where I'm going to be sharing with you one of the core philosophical teachings in alchemy, and the age-old adage that you've probably heard before, as above, so below. So hopefully this was inspiring for you. I know I'm kind of hitting at a very high level, but over the next few weeks, I'm going to really bring it down into some of the practical applications of alchemy, so you can really see how it can be used in your work with plants. But everything in alchemy is always a balance of philosophy and practice. And if we have practice with no philosophy, we're just kind of bumbling around and don't know what we're doing. But if we have all philosophy and no practice, then we're just sitting in our armchair thinking about interesting things, and that doesn't really help anyone, right? So this series is going to kind of start, these first two posts going to be talking a little bit more of the philosophy of alchemy, and then in the last two, I'll dig into some of the practical aspects and really show you how this can help you on your plant path. So thanks so much for joining me here. Be sure to open up the emails you're going to be getting from me over the next 3 weeks so you can catch all 4 parts in this series. So thanks so much for checking it out. Hopefully you learned something good here and are feeling good out there on your plant path. So until next time, take care and be well.